Have you spent a lifetime being the kind one, the emotional shock absorber for your family, your friends, your workplace? Always listening, always understanding, always saying yes. Until one day, over something small, something insignificant, you finally snap, and the intensity of your own reaction terrifies you. That moment of explosion is not a failure. According to the great psychologist Carl Jung, it is one of the most terrifying and most sacred events he ever witnessed. It is the day the empath's shadow finally demands to be heard. For too long, empaths have been seen as gentle victims. The truth is far more powerful. You are not a passive recipient of pain. You are an unconscious psychological strategist, cataloging every slight, every manipulation, every broken boundary with perfect, silent precision. That snap is not a loss of control. It is a profound, spontaneous act of shadow work. It is the integration of your suppressed power, your righteous anger, and your fierce, buried intelligence. In this transformative journey today, we will not teach you how to be kinder. We will teach you how to be whole. We will explore why the empath snap is not a breakdown, but a powerful, irreversible breakthrough. We will give you the conscious tools to begin your own shadow work so you can integrate this power without needing a crisis to force your hand. And we will map the path to becoming the psychologically complete empath that Jung observed, the one who is no longer a target, but a warrior of consciousness. This is not a lesson in forgiveness. This is a lesson in force. The force of a soul that has finally decided it will no longer abandon itself.
To understand the snap, we must first understand the silence that precedes it. The long, patient, observant silence of the empath. For most of your life, you were not taught to see your empathy as a form of intelligence. You were taught to see it as a feeling, a soft, gentle, boundless thing. But Carl Jung understood that true empathy is not just a feeling. It is a form of perception so advanced it operates like a data collection system. You are not just feeling the room. You are scanning it. You are unconsciously downloading terabytes of information. The flicker in someone's eye, the subtle shift in their tone of voice, the contradiction between the words they say and the energy they emit, the history of their past behaviors. You are not a psychic. You are simply paying attention on a level that most people have forgotten how to access. Let's go back to Chloe, not as a nurse this time, but as a daughter. For 20 years, she has listened to her father complain about his business partner, Mark. Year after year, the story is the same. Mark is lazy, Mark is dishonest, Mark is holding him back. Chloe, the good daughter, listens. She comforts. She validates. She absorbs her father's frustration. But she is also recording. Her empathic system is collecting data points. She notices that her father's business never actually fails. She notices that he takes lavish vacations while complaining about money. She notices that every time he has a chance to leave the partnership, he creates a reason to stay. She clocks the faint, almost imperceptible smirk of satisfaction on his face after a long rant about his supposed victimhood. She is building a psychological profile, a file stored deep in her unconscious, filled with 2 decades of evidence. The file has a title, The Truth. And the truth is this: her father does not want to be saved from Mark. He needs Mark. Mark is the perfect scapegoat. Mark is the screen upon which her father projects his own shadow, his own fears of failure, his own insecurities. This is an incredibly complex, painful truth. To speak it would be to challenge the central narrative of her father's identity. It would be an act of war. So Chloe remains silent. She is not weak. She is a strategist waiting. She is a psychological genius in hiding. And she is not alone. Every empath has these files. The file on the friend who is always the victim. The file on the partner whose charm is a mask for control. The file on the boss whose praise is a tool of manipulation. You see the patterns. You know the game. You hold a complete map of their shadowlands. And you never, ever use it. Why? Because the social contract, the family contract, the relationship contract, is often built on a foundation of shared denial. Your role as the empath is to be the keeper of the peace. And the price of that peace is your silence. The price of that peace is to pretend that you do not know what you know. This is the second layer of the empath's burden. It's not just the exhaustion of absorbing others' feelings. It's the soul-crushing weight of knowing the truth and being the only one in the room who cannot afford to speak it. And so you wait. You accommodate. You soothe. You absorb. Until one day, the clarity event. This is not just any betrayal. This is not just another disappointment. The clarity event is almost always a profound act of injustice, a violation so deep it cracks the very foundation of the contract. For Chloe, it came when she was going through a difficult divorce. She was at her lowest point emotionally and financially. She asked her father for a small loan to help with legal fees, a fraction of what he spent on his last vacation. And her father, the man she had emotionally supported for 20 years, said no. He told her she needed to be more responsible. He told her she was being too emotional. He used the same script he used for Mark on her. In that moment, something inside Chloe did not break. It became clear. The 2 decades of data, of silent observations, of suppressed truths rushed from her unconscious into her conscious mind. The file labeled "The Truth" opened, and the long silence ended. What happens next is not an emotional outburst. It is not yelling or crying. Jung noted that in these moments, the empath often becomes preternaturally calm. It is the calm of a strategist whose moment has finally arrived. Chloe looked at her father, and with no anger, only the cold, hard weight of 20 years of data, she began to speak. She laid out the pattern. She connected the dots. She described her father's relationship with Mark not as a story of victimhood, but as a system of collusion he had designed. She used his own words, his own history, against him. She did not offer an opinion. She presented a psychological diagnosis with the precision of a surgeon. In that moment, her father was not looking at his daughter. He was looking at a mirror reflecting every part of his shadow he had spent a lifetime avoiding. And it terrified him. This is the snap. It is not a moment of weakness. It is a moment of total, terrifying, and irreversible integration. The psychological genius is no longer in hiding, and the game has changed forever.
That clarity event, that snap, is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the most important work of your life. It is an alchemical fire, a spontaneous and often chaotic act of shadow integration. But you do not have to wait for a crisis to force your hand. You can choose to walk into that fire consciously. You can choose to do the work. The snap is a forced integration. Conscious shadow work is an intentional integration. For the empath, this work is unique. Your shadow is not what you think it is. It is not a monster of pure evil. Your shadow is your power. It is your suppressed anger, your disowned intelligence, your fierce capacity for truth, and your deep, unmet need to put yourself first. It is everything you were taught was selfish or unkind, and the work is to reclaim it. It begins with two powerful practical exercises. This is not about analysis, this is about excavation. The first practice, the ledger of unspoken truths. In the last section, we spoke of the psychological files you keep. This exercise is how you bring them into the light. Take a journal, and at the top of the page write this question. What is one truth I know about a significant relationship in my life that I have kept silent about in order to keep the peace? Perhaps it is with a parent, a partner, or a friend. Maybe the truth is their victimhood is a form of control, or their compliments are a form of currency, not affection, or simply, this relationship is no longer life-giving for me. Write it down. You do not have to say it out loud to anyone. Not yet. The simple act of writing it, of admitting it to yourself, is a revolution. It is the first step in honoring your own perception over the comfort of the collective illusion. The second practice, a dialogue with your anger. Your anger is the most loyal guardian of your boundaries. For years, you have locked it in the basement of your psyche. It is time to go downstairs and have a conversation. Find a quiet space. Close your eyes. Visualize the anger you felt during your last snap. Give it a form, a shape, a color. And then in your journal, write a letter to it. Begin with the words, "Dear Anger," and then ask it questions. What were you trying to protect me from? What boundary was being violated? What do you need me to do so you no longer have to scream? Listen to the answers that arise without judgment. This practice, this conscious engagement with your shadow, is how you turn a destructive wildfire into a controlled, generative flame. This inner work then allows you to build a new kind of external defense. We are moving beyond the gentle no. We are now forging iron boundaries. A gentle no is a request for respect. An iron boundary is a declaration of reality. It is not open for negotiation. It is a simple statement of what you will and will not allow in your space. Let's imagine Chloe with her mother-in-law, who has a habit of making passive-aggressive comments about her parenting. The old Chloe would have absorbed the comment, felt the sting, and said nothing. The Chloe who has practiced the gentle no might say, "I feel hurt when you say that." But the Chloe who is forging iron boundaries speaks a different language. She says, calmly and without malice, "I will not discuss my parenting choices with you. If you bring it up again, I will be leaving." There is no anger, there is no drama. There is only a clear statement of a cause and its effect. If you do X, I will do Y. This is the language of a sovereign being. It is the language manipulators cannot understand because it removes all emotional leverage. Of course, the moment you set such a boundary, an old ghost will appear. Guilt. The guilt will feel like an earthquake. It is the old programming, the good girl software, screaming that you were being selfish, that you were being cruel. Here is your work. Acknowledge the feeling. Thank it for trying to keep you safe in the old way, and then let it pass. Because guilt is the price of admission to your own freedom. Feel it, and set the boundary anyway. Finally, this new empowered self requires a new system of energy management. You must become a fierce guardian of your own vitality. This means practicing an end-of-day emotional cleanse. Every night before you sleep, stand in the shower, and as the water washes over you, visualize it washing away the psychic and emotional residue you have absorbed from others. See their anxieties, their frustrations, their dramas, circling the drain and leaving your energy field clean and clear. This is not just a metaphor, it is an act of psychic hygiene. And it means confronting the empath's secret addiction, the helper's high. Many of us were taught that our value comes from being needed. We get a chemical and emotional reward from saving people. This is the most subtle prison of all. Your work is to find your worth outside of your usefulness to others. This week, find one thing to do that is purely and selfishly for your own joy. Something that helps no one but yourself. Read a novel, take a walk in nature, sit in a cafe, and do nothing. This practice will feel uncomfortable at first. It is an act of rebellion against the helper's high. But it is how you teach your soul that you are worthy of existence, not just of service. The ledger of truth, the dialogue with anger, iron boundaries, the emotional cleanse, and the rebellion of joy. These are the tools of the empath who is no longer a victim. They are the practices of the psychological warrior. They are how you stop waiting for the snap and start choosing your own rebirth.
When you begin to do this work, when you start to integrate your shadow and honor your boundaries, a strange and wonderful thing begins to happen. The world around you starts to reorganize itself. You do not have to fight. You do not have to convince. Your very presence becomes a clarifying force. This happens through two powerful, unconscious mechanisms that manipulators and emotionally immature people can sense from a mile away. The first is what we will call the empath's mirror effect. The old you, the one who was a shock absorber, had a very specific function. You absorbed the tension. You smoothed over the conflict. You unconsciously agreed to participate in their denial. Your presence was a comfort to their shadow. The new you, the integrated empath, operates differently. You are no longer a sponge. You are a mirror. Your calmness in the face of their drama reflects their chaos back to them. Your refusal to accept their excuses reflects their lack of accountability back to them. Your commitment to your own truth reflects their self-deception back to them. You do not have to say a word. Your grounded, centered energy becomes a high-definition mirror for their own unprocessed shadow material. And for a person who has spent their life avoiding that shadow, being in your presence is now profoundly uncomfortable. The relationships that were built on your silence will begin to crumble, not because you pushed them away, but because they can no longer stand the reflection you provide. Let's think of Chloe again, with her sister and brother-in-law. In the past, she would have sat through their tense family dinners, absorbing the unspoken resentment, feeling sick to her stomach. The new Chloe sits at the table, present and calm in her own energy. She does not absorb their tension. She simply observes it. Her silence is no longer the silence of fear. It is the silence of clarity. They feel it. They feel that they are being seen, truly seen, for the first time. And without the buffer of her people-pleasing, they are left alone with their own dynamic. Soon, they start making excuses not to invite her. The system has rejected the mirror because it is not ready to see its own reflection. This may feel like a loss at first, but it is a sacred purification. The second mechanism is even more primal.
It is the predator's instinct. Manipulators, narcissists, and energy vampires operate on a predatory instinct. They're unconsciously scanning for a specific profile, someone with weak boundaries, someone who feels guilty saying no, someone whose identity is tied to being a helper. The old you was a perfect target. The new you, the one who has done the shadow work, no longer emits that frequency. Your energy signature has changed. When a manipulator tries one of their old tricks, a guilt trip, a passive-aggressive comment, a bid for sympathy, it simply doesn't land. It hits the solid wall of your self-possession and falls to the floor. There is no emotional reaction for them to feed on. There is no guilt for them to leverage. You are no longer a source of supply. And like a predator that realizes its prey is no longer weak, it will lose interest. It will move on in search of easier targets. You do not have to banish them. They will simply fade away. This is the profound power of the integrated empath. You change the world not by what you do, but by who you become. Your primary task is no longer to heal others. Your primary task is to be so rooted in your own truth, so fiercely protective of your own energy, that your very presence becomes an invitation for others to rise to meet you in that truth, or to leave. Carl Jung saw this transformation not just as a personal victory, but as an evolutionary step for humanity. The world has enough unconscious absorbers. What it needs now are conscious mirrors. It needs people who can hold a steady light in the face of the collective shadow. People whose empathy is not a weakness that leads to burnout, but a finely tuned instrument of perception, wielded with the precision of a warrior. You do not become less empathetic. You become selectively empathetic. You reserve the sacred gift of your deep, resonant empathy for those who are worthy of it, for those who are also doing their own work, for your children, your true friends, your chosen community. Your empathy is no longer a public utility. It is a treasure kept in the sanctuary of your well-guarded heart. The greatest tragedy of the empath is not that they feel too much. It is that they wait too long to claim the power that lies within what they feel. They wait too long to honor the guardian that is their anger. They wait too long to befriend the strategist that is their intelligence. They wait too long to realize that their exhaustion was never a sign of failure. It was a homing beacon, a sacred call from the deepest part of the soul, begging them to turn inward, to do the work, to come home.
Today, we have walked through the fire of the empath's snap. We began in the ruins of what felt like a failure, a moment of uncontrollable rage from the one who was always kind. We gave it a new name, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough, a sacred breaking. We unmasked the truth you have always known in your bones. You are not a passive victim. You are a psychological genius who has spent a lifetime collecting data from the shadows. The snap was simply the day the library of your unconscious mind was thrown open and the truth was finally spoken into the light. It was a spontaneous, primal act of shadow work. But we did not leave it there in the chaos of that fire. We began the conscious work of the alchemist. We learned to take the raw, molten energy of that moment and forge it into tools. the ledger of unspoken truths to honor your perception, the dialogue with anger to befriend your guardian, iron boundaries to declare your sovereignty, and the sacred rebellion of joy to reclaim your own life force. This is the conscious path of integration. And we saw the result, the birth of the complete empath, the one who is no longer a sponge but a mirror, the one who is no longer a target but a presence so grounded in truth that manipulation simply cannot find a foothold. This is not a fantasy. This is the destination of the work that Carl Jung mapped for us. So what is the final truth of the empath's snap? It is this: your greatest power is not in your kindness. It is in your wholeness. It is in your capacity to be both the gentle healer and the fierce warrior who guards the gates of your own soul. You do not have to choose. The work of integrating your shadow is the sacred act of becoming both. You are not becoming a bad person. You are becoming a dangerous person. Dangerous to the illusions of others. Dangerous to the systems of denial. Dangerous to anyone who requires you to be small so that they can feel big. And in this dangerousness lies your most profound service to the world. The transformation of the empath is not an event. It is a choice. It is a choice you make today and tomorrow and every day after. It is the choice to stop apologizing for the space you occupy, the choice to honor the truth you see, the choice to believe that your anger is not a sin but a sacred compass. The question is no longer if you will snap. The question is, will you choose your conscious transformation? But now that you have integrated your own shadow, a new awareness arises. You have become the mirror. But how do you recognize the shadow in others before it projects onto you? What are the subtle signs, the unmistakable red flags that tell you a person is not operating from a place of wholeness, but from a place of deep, unconscious wounding? Recognizing that is the next level of this work. It is the art of spiritual discernment, and it is the key to navigating the world with your gifts fully intact. We'll uncover that most dangerous psychological sign in our next conversation. For now, your work is to claim the transformation you have earned today. It is to make a vow to the warrior who has awakened within you. In the comments below, I invite you to make this declaration, to cast a vote for your new integrated self. Write the words, "I choose conscious transformation." Let this be the seal upon the work we have done. Let it be the first act of the sovereign being you are now becoming. Thank you for your immense courage. Your kindness was your prison. Your wholeness is your freedom.